Put a foot in.
Come here.
Just come through.
Wait, who? Me? Do you guys mean me?
Yo.
Oh my god, please pick me. Oh my god, please pick me. Please pick me. Bullshit. Bullshit.
Hello, friends.
Oh my god.
It's time for the show.
Is this happening?
With your favorite co-hosts.
It is.
Eric and Nicole.
Could be worse.
We got all you need from pop culture to what's on TV.
Or
We
not.
cover every day like Long Island Strong, North Shore, South Shore, all week long.
Please stop.
So let's get started, friends, because us two got a lot to say.
You do?
We're gonna make you laugh.
They're laughing.
Put a smile on your face today.
Hello, No, Nicole, I don't do this. It's time for the show. Why are we... No.
You're doing great.
With your good friends, Eric. I'm not doing this, Nicole. This is ridiculous. I don't sing. Just start the show. Let's go. Start the show.
Fine.
Hello, Nicole. Hello.
Hello, Eric. Hello.
How are you doing on this wonderful Friday?
I'm doing fantabulous. I love when people compliment our intros.
Nicole, no.
Sorry.
No fourth walls or third walls or whatever that wall is. But speaking of walls, Nicole, I want to fly through this intro so we can get
Yes, go.
to our guest and remind everyone, no matter where you guys are watching, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all those places, make sure you follow, like, and subscribe. It's a great way to help support the shows, as is sharing them. Share them now and let people know that we're live. Or when you get to the end of this, share it then if you think someone will enjoy it. Of course, if you need the links to any of my socials, Nicole's, or the podcast, see what our schedule is and more, you can check out our website, hellofriendspod.com. And Nicole, what if they're listening to the audio version?
If you are listening to the audio version of this show, aka the podcast, please leave it a 5-star rating, a positive review, and again, share it, because word of mouth, sharing is caring. We love to see it. We love new friends. I'm so excited for this show.
I am too. And even though I feel like I want to, steal the intro from you, I will not. We will keep tradition. Nicole, take it away.
Thank you. Oh man, I'm like nervous. Excited. Okay. Hello, friends. Our guest today is somebody who's absolutely incredible. You could find him on books. You can find him on Twitch. You can find him on blogs. You can find him on YouTube. You can find him everywhere. He is so intelligent, so absolutely amazingly incredible. It is the one, the only, the author, the gamer, the blogster, Ragan Fox.
Reagan!
Hi! Now I have to preface this by saying that I haven't watched Big Brother since season 15. And I don't say that in a way because I think some people say that like, oh, I don't watch Big Brother, but they secretly do, or they're doing it to be like mean to like the newer generation of Big Brother players. But after season 15 with all the racism and homophobia and stuff, like I was out. I was like, I can't, for my own emotional well-being, I can't do this. So Nicole, this is my first time to hear you speak. Where are you from? Because I hear podcast, I hear.
Where would you guess I'm from?
I mean, I'm guessing the East Coast for sure.
Absolutely.
Are you from Boston?
Not Boston. I mean, I can get you coffee. I can walk your dog.
Are you from Long Island?
Yep, Long Island.
Shut up! Oh, sorry. I have a tendency to scream and it gets way too hot. But yeah, I could get you coffee. I could, I have a stepmother, Joyce, from Long Island. And I grew up in Texas. So when she came to live with us, she came when I was like in the 4th grade. Everybody in Texas always, her accent was nonstop point of conversation.
That is so fun. That's not bad. You got it on the second try, because obviously I know it goes without being said, but I don't hear it. So when people are able to guess it, that's pretty impressive. And what's funny, me and Eric are from the same place. I don't know why my accent is ridiculous and his is not.
Nicole lives 10 minutes away from me.
Now, I have a theory about that.
Okay.
And it's connected to why I don't sound overtly like I'm from Texas. I mean, people can pick it up with some of my idiosyncrasies, like saying y'all and stuff like that. But I believe that gay men have to be more self-conscious about the presentation of their voice. And
Okay.
so a lot of times we will make our voices more neutral as to not call attention to it. So even though I clearly have a very feminine voice, I find other ways to try to flatten it and to take out dialect. That's my
Reagan,
theory.
Makes sense.
I just have to say that Reagan, you are 100% correct. This is not my real voice. As a gay man, I actually talk like this. Just in auto tune, but I control it for the podcast.
That's how he is in real life. It's a sing song all the time.
It is
Now,
awkward.
have you been vaccinated yet?
No.
Okay, I thought that was
No.
the Bill Gates microchip that has been
Oh,
implanted in
yes.
you.
I wish. No, that is something that is very inspired from you, Reagan. I mean, there's so much
Eric,
that I
you're still
know.
singing.
Ha 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 ha, and I forgot to turn it off. But no, I meant to do it in a song. That was inspired by you. There is, so much that we want to talk about on this show. But I mean, one of the places that I want to start, and like Nicole said at the beginning of this, you have a PhD, you have written books, you are an advocate for a lot of people, you have podcasts, you have shows. But I think, like, I knew about you before I ever knew you from Big Brother. And one of the things that I think you don't get enough credit for is you were one of the pioneers of podcasting, in my opinion, or at
Yeah.
least gay voices in podcasting from when podcasting started. You are a reason that I do what I do, because I remember
Aw.
hearing it and being like, that show's so funny. I would love to do something like that. Like,
Hold on.
well, and now I've driven him away. Okay, show's over, everyone.
You scared him away. You're too forward.
Gets
I'm-
plugged out
I'm
in the
sorry. I
process of
hated
that, As
it.
you're saying something really sweet and kind, and see what a pioneer I am. I can't even keep my
Pioneer.
I can't even keep my headphones on. Yeah, I was sorry. I just need to do my glasses, or else I'm gonna get eye strain. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, it drives me crazy that when like if I Google myself or whatever, everything is Big Brother, because I feel like, and not that I'm ashamed of that. Like I loved my experience on Big Brother. As Nicole knows, it'll always be a piece of your life after you do that show. However, that is such a fraction of who I am and what I do. And one of the drawbacks of a show like that is you have, that was done 11 years ago. I was on that show, but it becomes a part of your life that ends up cannibalizing so many other facets of who you are. So you're remembered by so many people for like fights that you had, or for people you did get along with, or people who you did get along with. And it's just a moment in time. It's just a page. There's so much more.
Oh, absolutely. The sound bites is what I always say, or the caricature, the box of, oh, you're Nicole, you laugh like this and you wear pink and you talk about unicorns. And that was one of my biggest struggles, was like getting off the show. It's like, no, I do curse. I do, like it was weird to like, even now try to break out of that, because it becomes so timeless. And so that's what you're known for.
Yeah. And you haven't even had time to truly decompress from everything that you've gone through, because what happens is you need more than a year out, and you did All Stars right after your first season, right?
Yes. Yep. Back to back.
So you haven't dealt with there's a weird psychological component to doing Big Brother beyond what you would typically think of being in the the mind fuck that is Big Brother, right? Where you go places, you go out to a restaurant and people recognize you and they want to have conversations with you, and that is awesome. It's like, wow, you know who I am, and
Okay.
especially for the typically attention-starved people who would be drawn to doing reality TV, and I'll implicate myself. Like, I always wanted to walk into a room and have people know who I was. So it becomes intoxicating, but you really don't. There is a very dark side of it when this drug of notoriety that you've been mainlining for a year starts to slowly slip away. It's like this warm feeling where you feel special, and it just, you can see it coming out of your grasp, and but then there's so much beauty on the other side, because you get to reclaim like who you are. And for me, I always, as I said, I always wanted to be the center of attention. I'm the youngest of many, many children. I was a late in life child for my dad. My parents divorced when I was an infant. I felt like I was always struggling to get attention. And Big Brother became a be careful what you wish for type thing. And I remember before I did Big Brother, it was all about accumulating, because social media was a lot newer then than it was now, or than it is now. And so, like, maxing out my friends on Facebook, and then something happening where I was like, hold on, I can't even engage my friends in real conversations on Facebook because I have all these people I don't know chiming in, and my friends are so turned off by it. And so now I'm down to like 138 friends on Facebook. I'm very guarded about that. So that's what you have to look forward to.
I would say, I think Eric would like attest. I think I'm at a point currently where I feel it going, and not in like a bad, like, no, stay here type of way. Just like in a, well, now I got to find me again type of feeling. And it's a very, whereas last year, all the rumors of All Stars and everybody saying I was going to be on it, it's kind of like, all right, I'm going to keep this grass because it's probably going to come back. Now it's kind of like okay, I can let this go, and I could try to be just Nicole again. And it's a very stressful thing. It's a very scary thing. It's a very, do I know who Nicole is type of thing. And I don't like it.
Yeah, but you have to get lost before you get found, as they say. And you still have some stuff to go through, because it's going to be weird for you to watch people move into the house when you're not moving into the house. And there's definite FOMO that's attached to not doing it. And it's hard. It's hard. But I think it's a trial by fire doing Big Brother. And it really separates people who, and let's say there are certain people who are so invested in it who will never be able to let go, like an evil dick, for instance. And it will just annihilate them. There's a line from The Office where Jan starts dating Michael Scott, and she's coming out to the cameras, like, I'm in okay, this is happening. I'm in a relationship with Michael Scott, and I kind of feel like I'm a dying star collapsing in onto itself. And so that's one route that you could take. And then the other route is just recognize the experience for what it is, and move on from that, and recognize it as a chapter rather than the whole book.
I think Nicole, like, to her, or, I think she's aware, but maybe we don't give her enough credit. I think she's aware of it. Like, I think, Nicole, you always say, like, it's just a moment. It doesn't define me. It's not my life. It's a moment of my life. And I feel like Nicole was thrown into the crash course of it, she went from America's favorite player, and everyone loved her, to, you didn't want to work with Janelle, we hate you, die, you're the worst. And like, so she had both experiences, like, loved by all the fans, to not everyone, but a lot of vocal ones being angry about that she didn't want to work with a favorite. So, I give her a lot of credit because I think she's handled it amazingly
Yeah.
and can still
Aw.
laugh about it and joke about it and have fun
Handling
with
it with grace. It seemed like, because even though I don't watch the show anymore,
Mhm.
I still I have this really odd relationship with it where I go and I look and see, okay, who won this week or who got the power of veto. Like I'm interested in the chess aspects. I just can't watch it.
I
And
get that.
so this is what I gathered from you from your season, that you were somebody that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is
Okay.
just from my kind of reading things on the periphery, that you were somebody who maybe wasn't taken too seriously and didn't fall naturally into an alliance. And then, so you were like the ultimate underdog, and then you ended up getting really far in the game.
Yep.
And
That's
then,
it.
yeah,
Bingo.
yeah, and then you came back, as a few people did for All Stars, who were beloved when they played, and then the tide turned against them. Like Kevin would be another example of that, where
Kevin.
he's so wonderful. And so when I saw what was happening, I won't get involved in Big Brother stuff unless I feel like there's some type of big injustice happening, and that's what I felt was happening with Kevin.
Guess who
Largely.
Kevin's best friend was on All Stars?
Oh yeah, y'all were really close, right?
That was my final two, yeah.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a real good person, and it sucks when people don't understand and can't appreciate that. If people really aren't willing to work with you, that's gonna take a toll on your attitude. And like I
And
saw
also,
people.
Nobody goes into that game like, haha, I want to lose. Haha,
Yeah.
I don't want to win the money. Nobody does it. So like, again, going back to that pigeonhole, that box, I think people expect like, no, you were like, for me, you were unicorns and rainbows and fun loving on your season. And now here you are. And because of slop and being nominated, like you're kind of down and out. You're kind of paranoid. You're not trusting the people that we like as a fandom. And it's so much bigger than here's your character, we want you to act this way. And I think that's where a lot of fans get stuck, is why are you not acting the same as you did a year ago or 4 years ago or 10 years ago? And when they don't see what they want and they can't fathom that you're a multifaceted human as opposed to a character, they get frustrated, and that's why they get angry.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean,
Yeah.
I watch my fair share of reality shows, and but having gone through that gauntlet, I love even the people. If I'm talking about the person, then they're doing something right. That's the way that I look at it. So when I watch the housewife shows and somebody's being awful, like let's say Ramona Singer on the Real Housewives of New York, yeah, she's awful, she's terrible. But I hate it when people get on Twitter and they're like, fire Ramona, or somebody else that's awful on a reality show, because they're doing their job. That's exactly, and it's all the better if they're just naturally being themselves, and doing that.
I mean, I always say, and we don't have to stay on Big Brother, but I always say that your season for me is the season that changed the fandom. And I feel like with you specifically, until season 12, I did not notice fans trying to get people fired from their jobs, rallying on social media. That to me was really the turning point of the fandom. I mean, and we could argue it's also when social media really started becoming prevalent as well, but that's kind of the darker side, I feel, of Big Brother.
I saw it happening earlier than that. Although I won't say that I saw it happening, because although I started watching Big Brother in season 2, and I watched every season through season 13. I skipped 14. I watched 15, and then I stopped watching. But I always, when I went in for the auditions, they were like, "Do you watch Big Brother?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a super fan," but I had no idea what a Big Brother super fan actually was. I just thought that watching every show meant you were a super fan. It doesn't. That just makes you kind of a casual fan of the show. And
Absolutely.
So then you learn after you do the show, oh no, there's this whole other layer of it. So I know that Maggie from season 6. There was a campaign to get her fired. Adam Jasinski or whatever his name, the guy who I think is in prison, who won the couple season. There was a campaign to get him fired. Although 99.9% of the time, I'm not for that type of fan intervention into people's real lives. Like I remember people going after Shelley on season 13, which is such an relatively inoffensive person. You know what I mean? Like they got mad because I think she threw one of Rachel's like teddy bears over the wall or something. It was like, really? Come on. But Adam worked with special needs children and was using the R word and saying really awful things. And so in that case, I'm like, yeah, you shouldn't be, and you're clearly have drug issues. So,
well, you know, somebody, speaking of your season, Ragan, who we got to watch you become really good friends with, who we know that you are still friends with in the real world, Matt Hoffman.
Yeah.
Who is also a friend of the podcast and show and always is doing stuff around here with us. Oddly enough, he heard about this show, and Ragan, he has a question for you.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna see if this is gonna work. Here we go.
Ragan, hey, it's Matt Hoffman from Big Brother season 12. I'm
Never heard of you.
a huge fan, and something I've always wanted to know is what part of my body you find the most attractive. Thanks for taking my question.
So what is the most attractive part of Matt Hoffman's body, Ragan?
First of all, let's acknowledge that Matt Hoffman looked really good in that video.
Yes.
Okay, so I messaged Matt and was like, Matt, you have to send me a video. I think it'll be funny. And then he sent me back that video and it was like 11 p.m. And I was like, this is kind of hot.
His hair looks good.
It really
It's like
does look good.
Tight white t-shirt.
He's
Like
got
that.
a girlfriend, and you know, like he's living his kind of like midlife fantasy right now. So yeah, he's looking good. So his toes are special, and so I don't believe this story, but this is his story, and he's sticking to it. Matt doesn't have toenails.
Okay.
And by that, that's not hyperbole. I don't mean like he has really teeny tiny toenails. He has no toenails. And so we asked him, we're like, why don't you have toenails? It's weird. And he claims that his mother, this is so weird.
There is no way this is true.
Freak me out.
He said that his mother had his toenails removed when he was a child, almost like he was a cat that was getting declawed, because she thought that it would be too much work to have to cut your nails, and that almost like she was circumcising her child, like maybe other people will.
But fingernails are there.
Fingernails are there, but no toenails. And the guys on season 12, other than me, I have normal people feet, had the weirdest feet. Brendan has, I shouldn't say had, like he got it removed, has this like abnormally large big toe. And Brittany and I used Brittany's so evil. I love her so much. Oh. Brittany came up with the name the saber-toed tiger.
Oh, no. Wait, so you guys were walking around like scoping people's feet? Like I would avoid people's feet. Like no, I mean,
we all saw each other. Yeah, we would all be laying. We had a room called the Taj, which is the one in between the kitchen and the bathroom.
Okay.
And like the lounge area. Yeah. And so we would all kick off our shoes, and it was just awful. It was such a fright fest. But Matt Hoffman's feet are the sexiest part of him.
Are they?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, no, I'm not a feet person. Yeah.
I'm gonna say his hair. I'm gonna say that hairdo. Woo!
I like his tattoos. He has really good tattoos.
Yeah.
Matt's a handsome guy. And what makes him even more handsome is that okay, so did you go through the traditional casting process, Nicole, where you went to, okay, so.
I did a video. I submitted a video.
And then you went to the hotel by LAX for finals. And okay, so about half of our cast went through that process, and then the other half were, models or, found or, whatever. So Matt and I both went through that process together. So when you get into the vans and you go to CBS to meet with the bigwigs there, we were sitting together on the van trip. And so I had seen Matt multiple times before moving. We never talked to each other, but I'd seen him. And I never thought like, oh, wow, that guy is attractive or, whatever. But Matt is such a wonderful guy. And not that I thought he was bad looking, he just never was like on my radar as like, but when you get to know him, he's one of the coolest guys I have ever met in my entire life. And his personality makes him one of the most attractive people that I've ever met because he's so cool. Yeah. And I really mean that. I mean, like, I really think that he's a great guy. He's a great father, and he's been a great friend to me. So he's one of the biggest gifts that I got doing that show.
When Nicole went on to All Stars, it was amazing for me because I got to be part of that whole process with her, and I got to like be in her intro package, but it also meant I had to keep the secret, and they wanted us, allegedly, I'm making this up for community purposes, we had to create all of these shows as if she was here. So it took us like 2 months to bank a month's worth of shows and all this stuff. And then she ended up being gone, and Matt would text me once every 3 days and go, "Are you ready to admit it yet?" And I'm like, "No, Matt, she's here. Just let me talk to her. You have no problem letting me talk to her any other time." And I'm like, "Matt, she's here. I can't. She's in the other room. You're lying. I'll try again later."
Matt should have been on All Stars 100%. It should have been Matt over Enzo, no question about that. And another person who should have been on All Stars is Eric Stein. Like those are two people. Eric Stein not being on All Stars to me makes my head explode because he's the most connected person to Big Brother alumni, and everybody going into the house would have thought that they were Eric's person. And so that would have made for really interesting drama. And so who knows?
Maybe he didn't want to do it though. Maybe he was asked.
Possibly that could have been.
Yeah.
That could have been.
I mean, I think the general consensus from the fandom is it was not a cast that most fans would have thought ended up as the cast.
Yeah, I was shocked when I saw the cast.
Yeah, but I mean, not you, Nicole. You were there. You were there. We don't mean you.
Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense that the person who's fan favorite from the previous season, if the All-Star season, it's the next season, is going to be there. But some of the other choices, I was like, what is going on? And not just part of it's selfish, right? Because I'm like, I would have liked him back. But then other stuff, and I wrote about it a lot while it was happening. Just you have white heterosexual people who had no history of working with minoritized house guests, and then exactly what you would expect would happen in that scenario is precisely what happened. So that was, and I think it was frustrating for a lot of people. And the worst part of it is that all of this happened in the wake of the George Floyd controversy and during Black Lives Matter, and so the tokenization of people of color on All Stars was just maddening to me.
I would be so, like, I know that you've kind of separated yourself from watching Big Brother. I wish that you would be watching this season of Big Brother Canada, which is airing
Yes.
right now, I would find it fascinating to get your thoughts on it, because they came out and said, you know, we are making this the most diverse cast
Yeah.
ever. We will have 2 gay guys on it. They might kiss. We will have the majority of people will be people of color. The Caucasians, the white people will be in the minority for this season. And we want to give more opportunities to, you know, marginalized groups, or people see as marginalized groups, to play this game. And it has been amazing.
Oh,
There
that's
hasn't.
I was so waiting for you. I was waiting for you to be like, and guess what? It's
Nope.
just like
No, it's
white
lovely.
people doing it. Like,
No,
that's
it
great.
is. I would say most fans are agreeing this is probably the best season of Big Brother Canada that we've had in 9 seasons.
Yeah, but that's what happens. There's something called white racial bonding, and it's not exclusive to white people, but if you throw a
Mhm.
bunch of white people in a house, uh, communication patterns will push these people together at the expense of everybody else. And so, and frankly, we need diversity beyond this. We need greater age diversity. We need
Yes.
greater diversity in perceived attractiveness.
Yep.
I remember when reality TV was just a thing. You know, they're bringing back The Real World now from season 1, and it was just, other than Eric Nies, who is very, very good looking, it was just kind of like average everyday people. And then if you had somebody like an Eric, that would be the anomaly. So it was like one thirst trap that you could pull over. And now, or like going back earlier in Survivor, where I remember Colby Donaldson in the Australian outback, where it was like, oh, everybody loved Colby and he's so handsome. But now they think that that's what everybody has to be on the show. And it's so much more interesting to have people modelly people aren't always that interesting. I'm sorry.
True.
And I would rather have an average looking person or a below average looking person by cultural standards, right?
Yep.
Who is an interesting person who's going to shake things up than a model.
But
And I
okay,
would argue that about BB and 9, and that's no insult to any of them. They're all gorgeous people, but they're not like the stereotypical, here's the Instagram, here's the Instagram, here's the Instagram. Like, I feel like they're more like your typical people. And I don't mean that as an insult to any of them. I just think they're more down to earth, like typical people.
Well, and it's not an insult to say that, like, I'm an average looking dude, right? Like, I know going into my season, I was like, I definitely don't look like Brendan or Hayden, right? Like, I was fully aware of that, right? And so I think it's okay to admit that, and also to acknowledge the fact that if you get interesting people, that as we were saying before, makes people more attractive. And so
Absolutely.
I'm glad that Canada is going out and doing it. Now, I will say on the flip of it, and I've said this before in social media, on live videos, I haven't put it in text form yet, but I hate how Robin Cass has become a scapegoat for all things that are wrong with Big Brother's casting. I don't think that people quite understand. Robin Cass is probably the only person that I genuinely like in production. And she brings a pool of a couple hundred people to CBS, and there are people higher up that make the final decisions. And so if they're pushing Robin to find a bunch of white people, then that's what Robin is going to bring them. And I feel like Robin was treated like a sacrificial lamb. She got death threats after All Stars. My guess is that she had very little to do with the cast of All Stars, because production already saw, okay, here's a pin board and here are pictures of, you know, a bunch of people that we might invite back. I'm sure she had some input, but it's not like, okay, I'm Robin Cass, I'm going to decide the 16 people who make it into the house.
And I agree with you. I absolutely adore Robin, and I agree. There's more to it than, like you said, Robin just going, okay, here's your 16. I
Yeah.
picked them alone in my living room. This is
Yeah.
the one.
No.
I mean, the biggest argument that I say all the time is, and I mean, I feel like people finally are getting it now. Every time the same people that complain, Robin's the worst, it's the worst cast, she cast the most horrible people, then go, Big Brother Canada's the best cast ever. Why can't it's Robin.
Robin cast
Yeah,
Phoebe Canada.
it's the same person. If
They-
really what they needed to do was the shift needed to happen in executive production for that show. The reins needed to be taken away from Rich and Allison and given to somebody younger, you know, and somebody who kind of understands what it means to not just exploit current controversies like Black Lives Matter. Or, you know, in my book, I talk about how they were only interested in casting a trans person the summer after Caitlyn Jenner was the #1 story.
Wow.
Yeah, that's when I don't know her, Audrey, right?
Audrey, yeah.
Yeah, Audrey Middleton, I think is her name. That's when she was cast. And then with Donnie, who was also America's favorite player, he was cast after Duck Dynasty became popular. Enzo was cast the summer after Jersey Shore became a big hit. So Big Brother has a pattern of chasing the zeitgeist and saying, okay, people like this, but they don't dig below the surface of that. So sorry, I know I'm talking a lot about Big Brother, but
See, you thought you wouldn't be able to.
I know. I mean, this is like old school Big Brother
the
stuff.
psyche behind it.
Yeah, so when you know, we all have our stories when we're going through casting, and they say, okay, what's your story going to be? What's your strategy going to be? And Enzo had told them in casting that he was going to be like a mafia boss, and he was going to have quote unquote Enzo's angels, and it was going to be the gay guy and the woman with the big boobs and the meathead, and he was going to get them to do all their dirty work. So he had been saying this to production all the way through finals. And so what they did, because they loved that and they knew they wanted to do something Jersey Shore, Italian, that's what was driving them in part that season. And so Enzo got credit for creating the brigade, not because he created the brigade, Matt created the brigade, but because they were so married to the storyline of Enzo's angels. But then when it turned out that Enzo ended up bonding with, not surprisingly, other white heterosexual men and not the minoritized groups that he claimed that he would be, they changed it to the brigade storyline, but they made it seem like he was the one bringing it all together, but that's not at all the way it happened.
I think live feed watchers know that and the way it went down. And I'm sure that you're aware of this too, because of what you teach and what you do. Me coming from like a radio and television production background, I think, and let me know if you agree, wouldn't you say that a large reason why they're casting the models and the jocks is because they have the pressure from the advertisers and the marketers? We want to, you know, if you want us to give you this ad to sell and run this commercial, we need to know that you're hitting that demographic. So if you don't have the blonde cheerleader and the college guy, we don't know that we want to give you the Bud Light commercial.
100. Well, but a big component of that is psychological too, right? Yeah. So of course, at the end of the day, they're very inexpensive to produce television program, which is why they've stayed on TV for as long as they have, and that explains why they're chasing the zeitgeist, because they say, oh, look at these ratings that Jersey Shore or Duck Dynasty or the Caitlyn Jenner on Keeping Up with the Kardashians are bringing in. If we do something similar, not realizing that if they just kind of went with their gut, or not their gut, but if they just went with what was right, all of that stuff would fall into place, and they would, like, instead of chasing Jersey Shore, why not create something to be chased? And you look at some of the most interesting characters, like some of the people who I wanted desperately to see on an all-star season. Rennie, who is my all-time favorite player. I love Rennie. Ronnie, who was such a divisive character, who was so, like, obviously not modelly whatsoever, but shook things up and was so divisive, and the fans just, like, wanted to annihilate him. But Ronnie has this great talent of being able to be like, okay, well, that's what the show is, and brushing it off. And so more of that's what people are interested in. And I'm so happy to hear that that's what Big Brother Canada is doing, and that they're doing it right. And hopefully that will have some effect on Big Brother US.
I think
You know, you mentioned your book, Inside Reality TV, although you do have a few books that you have written that are all available on Amazon. What do you want to say to people who might not know of them? What do you want to say to them about, you know, your books? Obviously, Exile and Gayville is more of your poetry, but I feel like the Inside Reality TV, I feel like our fans would probably love reading this book.
Yeah, so I have a couple of things to say about that. The first of which is when the book came out, a lot of people were confused about the price, and academic books just cost more. I mean, it's just, I have no control over that. I think that they were able to bring the price down to a more manageable price if you got it on ebooks, but that's just, it's part of the problem of capitalism and academia, that there's price gouging in the textbook industry, which is why I fight tooth and nail every semester not to upgrade to the newest edition of the book.
Us college kids, thank you. Oh, I'm not college anymore, but ex-college kids, thank you.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it drives me crazy. I mean, you see a textbook that's a couple hundred pages and it's over $100, and that's just, so I understand that it's too expensive. I agree with you. I had to actually fight with the press in order to get them to come down in price. So that's one thing. The second thing is, and I think it's the biggest revelation in the book, the second chapter goes through casting in very, very specific detail. And so I haven't, even though I love Robin Cass, I have not talked to her since the book came out, because I knew that she would probably be upset with the amount of detail that I went through about casting. I mean, down to like when you go to check in, how you give them your initials instead of your name. And I printed my schedule when I was at the Finals Hotel. Like, I have actual documents that they gave me. I take you through every
no comments.
Yeah, you see, you can't talk about it because it's built into our contracts that we have to wait something like 3 years or something before we talk about those things. But
allegedly,
I print that portion of the contract, so there are documents in it, and so it's a really great behind the scenes look of what happens in the casting experience, at least that chapter. And one of the things that I argue through giving all of this detail is that the casting process isn't just one that determines who is going to get on the show. It's also one that indoctrinates house guests and makes them more docile. Because when you put somebody in solitary confinement, especially the sequester going into the house, when you put them into solitary confinement, when you dictate where they go, when you take all of these exams and tests and psychological profiles so they know exactly kind of like, here's the type of challenge you'll excel at, here are the buttons that we have to press in order to send you over the edge if we need to. It's about making house guests more compliant. That way, when they're pushing you in a certain direction in the diary room, you kind of go along with it. And it's a slow, and down to as you're going through the casting process, every step of the way, you're not allowed to tell anybody anything. And they give you these little anecdotes of, well, you know, this person showed up at the hotel last year and the flowers were waiting from them from their boyfriend. And that we had to kick the person out because of that. And they probably would have made the show. They tell you all of this stuff and get in your head. We have plants in the hotel, like people that they're planting in the hotel, and they're going to try to start a conversation with you, and you're not allowed to talk to anybody. So if you engage them in a conversation, you're going to be booted out of the casting process. All of that is designed as a mind fuck to get into your head, because that way when you get on the show, like when America voted for me to be the second saboteur my season, I didn't want to do it. I was like, my game is going great right now. This is going to be weird. I'm going to have to it's going to be something that people in the house are going to start mistrusting me, because they're going to be like, hold on, was Ragan there when that was, just didn't want to do it. But Rich came into the diary room, that, you know, like they were really doing stuff to get in my head in order to get me to do the things they wanted me to do. And that process starts in casting.
I've always said, playing devil's advocate with the casting process, I think it's also very much to see who can handle it. I think if you're somebody who they, you know, allegedly put in a hotel for a sequester period and you freak out, okay, that person's not going to last in the house. Or if you're somebody that they are planting seeds and you start freaking out and ripping the hotel room apart, probably not going to last in the house. So I think what I saw it as is kind of like a mini Big Brother, like a mini prep to see how you handle, if you can cope. And yes, everybody has their breaking point, but I think it's almost, will this person be able to cope when day one they're locked in this house with no windows, or are they going to like freak out to a level where, oh, they're off the show?
See, I freaked out in the house. I remember going into the second HOH competition, and I suffer from abnormal anxiety. And it was, I mean, I never knew. I mean, I guess it was always, anybody who suffers from mental health issues, I'm sure will relate to what I'm about to say. But when you suffer from mental health issues, whether it's depression or anxiety, that's just normal for you. That's your normal. And so I never recognized it as mental health issues. It wasn't until after I did Big Brother and I started self-medicating with marijuana, which only exacerbated those anxiety issues, that I realized, oh my gosh, I've been suffering from crippling anxiety my entire life. And so that really came to a head the second week in the game. And I remember being, you know how sometimes you have like a quiz and you're in those like little boxes, and I just felt like it was closing in on me, and I thought, I'm gonna have to leave. I'm gonna have to leave.
I get that 100%.
Yeah, but I kind of, I see what you're saying, and it's something that's commonly said about that experience. But I also believe that they go for people who I don't think that you have to pass your psychological profile in order to get on the show. In fact, I think that they may be looking for some people who are actually not passing it, that are considered safe, like not going to harm themselves. I wonder
if I pass it. No,
I really do. I believe that.
No, I can see that. I think, like, you know, they want like, no, that makes sense, because they don't want anybody, they don't want a whole class of 16 people that aren't paranoid. They don't want a whole cast of 16 people that, I take confrontation well, I deal with everybody, I don't have an attitude problem. They want people that, oh, this person's paranoid, this person gets annoyed, but like you said, not to the extent of like hurt themselves,
harming.
But I think, you know, just get the different traits that, you know, you'll see make the house more dynamic and whatnot. But I hear you 100% on a mental health anxiety level. I was somebody who prior to Big Brother was always like, oh yeah, I'm an anxious person here and there, whatever. And being in the house is when I really started to realize, like, oh no, like I am not an anxious person, I have anxiety. And then returning for All Stars is when I really, like, you know, thinking of the plane ride, thinking of being locked in the house, no windows. I would have nightmares where I couldn't breathe. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, I have anxiety. So it does, because you're locked in there, you're forced to face a lot of things that you didn't know about yourself. And that's something that I am eternally grateful for, because as like, as it is, it brought it to my attention, where if I hadn't gone on the show, I may be like, oh yeah, I'm anxious, whatever, you know?
Well, we don't have a true nuanced understanding of what anxiety and depression mean unless you truly are diagnosed with it. Because for me, I always thought depression was just like, you know, when you're a teenager and it's like, this guy doesn't like me and I'm depressed over it. There's a difference between that and clinical depression or anxiety. When people say, like, not only do I have abnormal anxiety, but I also have obsessive compulsive disorder. So OCD is a perfect example where people misuse that term all the time, where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm just like a really OCD about, you know, having my cups in this part of the cupboard, or, and so I agree with what you're saying. It is a gift to be given when things reach a breaking point, and Big Brother acted as a catalyst that kind of sped up the process of me reaching a breaking point. Luckily, my mom was in town. I had to get an emergency appointment and to see a psychiatrist. I mean, it was really bad. I thought I was never going to be normal again. And I got into cognitive behavioral group therapy and started taking an SSRI, and I've been asymptomatic for a while now. But thank God. I mean, I just look at all of this time in my adult life where I've been suffering.
You didn't know.
I had no idea. I mean, even to the point of, so my anxiety was so bad that my jaw was like permanently clenched. You know, like when people say resting bitch face or whatever, that it was not resting bitch face, but like my resting face was one of great tension. And it was so much so that my, the muscle that goes over, I guess, your temporal muscle, every day, as the day would progress, it would get numb. And numb doesn't hurt, but it is super annoying. It would almost throb with numbness, if that makes any sense.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And I never knew what it was. I was like, am I about to have an aneurysm? It was all anxiety. And I just thought, well, this is just the way my body is. So if anybody is listening to this today, where I hope that there's somebody who hears this conversation that we're having who may be thinking that there is a part of their mental health that's not right. But even when I first started to see my OCD for what it was, I kept rationalizing, oh, this is just kind of like a mild OCD, you know, like trying to qualify it. Yeah. I was going up at the height of it. I was going up to check to see if my front door was locked like 6, 7, 8 times a night. And as I was going to the door, I'd be like, something's wrong with me. Something's wrong with it. This isn't right. This isn't right. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like and not saying that it's the same as it is for both of you, but I mean, I feel like there's such a connection to that in your All-Star season. And I know that you've talked about this on the podcast, Nicole, and I know that we saw it. Like week 2 for you, we all thought you were self-evicting, and it was heartbreaking for your friends, for fans, to everybody to watch. We really thought you were going to self-evict because you just seemed like
it was a mental break. BB21, like as difficult as like week 4 was, I cried about it and I wanted to self-evict. That was more, oh damn, I'm hurt and I'm upset and I'm mad. BB22 was like, I cannot do this. I'm like, I can't do it. So yeah, it was a mental break that I will never judge anybody who plays that game ever again. I'll never question anybody who wants to self-evict. I'll never question anybody who cries, because again, nobody goes into that game going, I want to have a mental break week 2 and not win. Like nobody does that. So when you're not anticipating it, and even having already gone through it once, I didn't anticipate going back being traumatic, being triggering, being like 2 times as bad. And oh my God, I've only been home for 6 months and now I'm back. What's happening? Like, and I think what I always say, and Ragan, I don't know if you agree with this, when people ask me for advice for like applying for Big Brother, or what do you think I should do? I always say, go with your heart, go with your gut. If you want to, you want to. Nobody's going to stop you. but know what you're getting yourself into, not only in that game and in that journey, but also afterwards. It's not like finale happens and you move on with your life. Yes, there's the good and there's the beautiful, but there's also the bad. There's the trauma, there's the triggers, and some people don't have them. Some people just move on, but some people, it does affect them greatly, and you could use that to grow, but it can also, it can affect your life. So I always say to people, like, if you're going to apply, just know what you're signing up for. Listen to these type of interviews, listen to what people are talking about. And if you don't think you're going to be able to handle it, I strongly encourage you not to do it.
It's sage advice, Nicole, but it's one of those things where until you're there, until you've experienced it, you just don't know. And that's why I always go a little bit mad whenever I see people who justify treating participants on the show like garbage, saying, well, they know what they were getting into. And you have no idea what you're getting into. You know, you don't know, well, like this psychological stuff. We're having a really deep, important conversation about mental health right now. And you don't know what it's like. A perfect person to talk about in relation to this is Rachel. Rachel knows what it takes to make amazing television. And I'm so grateful that she was on my season, because it really would have been a snooze without Rachel. And she was so self-aware the entire time. You know, she'd walk by those mirrored, you know, double mirrors, and she'd look at herself, and, you know, she knew when to turn it on. But when we were arguing, see, I knew that Rachel was the villain of our season, because when I was the saboteur, and this is how another way production gets in your head, all of my suggestions would be like, throw Rachel's quote unquote nasty hair extensions into the pool. Like, it was all, like, not all, but I would say 70% of the suggestions were mean stuff directed at Rachel. And so I was like, oh, people really don't like Rachel. So that got in my head, right? And so I remember when Rachel and I had our blowout argument, I sat down with her after, and I was like, Rachel, I get it. You want attention. I want attention, but you are not at the point in your life now where you discern between good attention and bad attention. It's just all attention to you. And you want good attention. You really, in your heart, don't want bad attention. And I just hope that this experience doesn't destroy you. And so when she got out, it was really tough for her, because people were, you know, she had her supporters, but she had a lot of people who were really, really mean to her as well. And we rebounded with our friendship very soon after the show ended. And so it was great to see her get to come back the following season and be able, like, I remember one moment where her and Brendan were on the hammock, and she was crying, and she was about to self-evict. And I could tell, like, I knew it was not show. I knew it was not just about getting attention. I could tell, like, this is my friend, and she's had it. And my heart was breaking for her too, because at the beginning she was getting the same type of edit and the same type of, and I was just like, I want her to have a redemption. And she said to Brendan, I came out and I'm known as the villain, and nobody wants to hire me or talk to me or any of this other stuff. And so even somebody as self-aware as Rachel, knowing, okay, I'm going to make really good television now and come up with all these catchphrases, and, you know, like, she knew what show she was on, was not at all prepared for the blowback that she got. And luckily for her, she was able to come back and reverse course and get the fans on her side. And so now, talking to you, I'm kind of heartbroken that you had the experience, kind of like an inverted experience.
Absolutely.
The thing that I always say about Rachel, and she has been on the show a lot of times, and her and I have talked about it, but she hasn't been on in a while. You know, everybody always sees Rachel as, like, the character on Big Brother. And, like, I'm sure that you know the real Rachel, the one that is caring and compassionate and isn't, you know, ha ha ha, Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of her character. And the thing that I always say about Rachel is when Hurricane Sandy kind of wiped out Long Island and my parents lost their house, we were, dealing with all this stuff. I will never forget that I was doing all these shows and everything for 5 years. Rachel was the one person who called me and was right after she won Big Brother and was like, "Do you need me to help your family financially?"
Oh,
And
yeah,
I will,
that's really Rachel.
and that's Rachel. Like, that's what I say to people all the time. Like, that's Rachel. And not for attention, not like, let's make it a thing for social media. She's like, we do not tell anyone, do you need me to help you? Do you need me to help your family? And
Yeah,
like, that's the Rachel I'll always know.
so we had a 10-year reunion for Big Brother 12 last
Yes.
summer. Or no, it was last fall, I guess we had it. And so Brendan and Rachel were putting it together. And so I agreed to do it. And then the Big Brother cast came out and I saw that Enzo was going to be in the cast and that triggered me. And I was just like, I can't do it. I can't do it because people are going to be asking questions about Enzo. And I'm just like, I just don't want to put myself in that situation. And, we're in the middle of the pandemic and just my mental health was not in a good place.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so I contacted Brendan and Rachel and I was like, y'all, I can't do it. And here's why I can't do it. And most of the time, even out, in real life, period, people are going to be kind of going after their own self-interest and well, I'm putting this together and you said you would do this. And, we use you along with these other people who said they would do it to sell the idea. And their response, Brendan wrote me back this really long, beautiful email. And it really touched me. I mean, it was really sweet. And he was like, your mental health is the most important thing. And I would never want you to be in a situation that compromised that. And I mean, there was never a moment of blowback.
Wow.
Ever. And same thing with their wedding, because their wedding was televised. And the only thing that I asked, because I was going to be one of Rachel's bridesmaids on the show, and I had just gone through this big ordeal with Dick Donato, and I said to the producers of My Fair Wedding, or whatever that show was called, I was like, I will only do it if you put it in writing that Dick Donato will not be at the wedding, and they wouldn't do it for. In my mind, I was like, well, if he's not going to be there, just put it in writing. And and I had already felt so manipulated by production and saw what production can do in order to manipulate people that I was like, I'm not going to do this, especially if I'm doing this for free, And rather than take it like personally, both of them again were just so gracious about it. And sorry, we keep going down this rabbit hole.
No, that's so wonderful. I love to hear it.
First of all, the chat, I will just say, I know we haven't really been taking their questions, but just so you know, Reagan has been saying, oh my God, we love Reagan. There were a few people, I saw Yanisa said it. She just bought your book while we were talking. Lots of people just saying how much they love this conversation, how important it is. They are no strangers. Nicole and I talk about mental health all the time. On this show, and just to and people were also saying like, we love hearing these little stories and little Easter egg moments about things, to which I will say, if you ever go back and watch the Rachel wedding, my hubs made their cake topper. Now I don't know, but I think that then the show was like, we can't use it for whatever reason, but like it's there, like you can see it. It's like the caricatures of them or whatever, which was so funny.
Do you have a picture of it that you could send me?
Yeah, I'm sure we do.
Okay,
I'm sure we do.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah,
I heard she came in on like a ring.
Yeah,
I need to see it. When I didn't watch it, and I need to go because it was again too close to everything. But I need to go back and watch it and then she was like crying under a bar at some point. Rachel is such a character, and she will always forever be a part of my life. Yeah.
Well, one other part of your life, Reagan, as people can see, there were some people saying that you look different, that they don't remember you having long hair. And this is something that
I love it.
Nicole was really loved and wanted to know more about. So I'm going to let you take it away, Nicole.
Yeah, I have so many questions. Like how long have you been growing it out? How has that journey been going? Because I had a short pixie cut years ago, and it is a biatch to get past the awkward phase.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like mid-face, weird. You can't do anything with it, so you're just like, sup.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm so glad that you asked about this question, because it's so much deeper than hair. Like the signification of hair and our culture
Yep.
for different communities means different things. Like you look at black hair. There's a movie called Bad Hair, which is all about like somebody getting extensions, and it becomes like monstrous for this black woman because they're like voodoo extensions, and in the gay community certainly. So here's the story of my hair. I had super long hair in middle school, and I would get bullied because I was growing up in Texas, and I was very clearly gay. And my parents, and this is quite common if you're the object of bullying, will say, well, you need to do X, Y, and Z to change yourself so you no longer become a target of bullying. So my parents would say, if you just cut your hair, if you would just cut your hair. And of course, I cut my hair, and the bullying didn't stop. And so there are deeper parts of this that have to do with gender fluidity. And I just did a video about this on YouTube a couple weeks ago. But so then I let my hair grow long in high school. And then when I came out at 18, came out of the closet, and I was like, oh, I want to start dating other guys. I figured that I needed to look like what I was attracted to. So my hair was super short from the time I was 18 until I was in pretty much my 40s, I would say, with the exception of maybe like a couple of undercuts where the top would get a little bit longer. And you see it like to the extreme in my season of Big Brother, where my hair was a very, very, very short, like basically like a buzz cut.
Yeah.
And so what happened to me when I turned 40, and I'm turning 45 in May, at the beginning of May. Yeah, I know.
I guess math-wise it makes sense, because, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow, good for you. I'm older than both of you. Damn it.
We make 40 look good, Nicole.
You guys do. I already look like I'm 50. Jesus.
No, you don't.
You
So
don't.
I decided when I turned my 40s, I was like, there's a bunch of stuff that I have clung to, like trauma that happened to me in my past, and I'm ready to let some of that stuff go to the best of my ability. I don't think you can ever truly let go of trauma. Like I was molested as a child, and like there's no letting go of that permanently, but I wanted to find a way to start a new chapter rather than look back at my past and be like, X, Y, and Z happened to me, right? And so I started going to a therapist, and I went in with a very easy question where I said, okay, the cliche is you can't love somebody else until you love yourself. And that to me seems like such a platitude. It's like, okay, well, what does it mean to love yourself? And so that's the question that I went in with. Like, what does it mean to love myself? And one of the things that I have been learning through mindfulness exercises and through therapy and stuff like that is that there are so many ways that I have edited myself to create a version of myself that I'm gonna get emotional saying this, because it really is connected to so much self torture.
Yes.
But I had spent so much of my life trying to create a version of myself that I thought other people would find attractive. And I don't just mean like attractive in like a sexual way, but like would find interesting or be drawn to. And so the stuff that made me happy, I thought wasn't going to make other people happy. So it wasn't enough that I always liked my hair long or whatever. Like I had to edit, I had to squelch that part of myself. So what happened was I decided when I got into my 40s, I was like, you know what? I always loved my hair long. I look at pictures of my hair when it's long, and I want to do this for myself. And I committed. I was just like, I'm going to let my hair grow long because that's what I want to do. And there's nothing like being a guy growing your hair out, especially as it goes going through the ugly stages, you know, where you have so many naysayers and so many people who, and still to this day on Facebook, you know, I have people who will say, when are you going to cut your hair? And, you know, are you transitioning, or, you know, like, what is the deal, right? And I'm like, no, this is how my hair is for me. And then other people now, I have many more people now who tell me how much they love it. And it just feels more, thank you. Thank you for saying that.
So much.
It takes a lot. It took me over 40 years to, like, I look back at middle school and I think, wow, I was so bullied and had to go through so much then. But in so many ways, I was connected to a much more authentic part of myself where I got to express myself in the way that I dressed and my self-presentation. And then, ironically, it was when I came out of the closet where you would really think that you would lean into yourself and be true to yourself, that I actually started editing myself in a way to make myself more masculine. And that realization really changed my outlook. And that, on top of the pandemic and lockdown and spending so much time with myself and being kind of aware of, like, okay, what are my values?
Yeah.
Yep. What do I love in other people? What do I love in myself? Where do I... Noticing the things that, and Eric, I'm sure you're going to really relate to what I'm about to say, but so much gay social bonding happens in gay bars where the music is very loud. You can't really have a conversation with anybody. So everything is based on looks, right? Like, who am I attracted to? And not even just sexually, but like, who do I think is interesting just based solely off of their looks? Mm-hmm. And so this is something connected to Big Brother, where you may go in thinking somebody's super attractive, and again, not just physically attractive, but, you know, are not just sexually attractive, but whatever. Then you start talking to them and you're like, wow, you have a really shitty personality and I don't find you interesting at all anymore, right? And so for such a long time, I have based perceived attractiveness on the superficiality of what somebody looks like. But in my day-to-day, getting to know somebody and their intellect is always what drives me. And so I have always looked at somebody I've found attractive on a very superficial level, because that's all I'm really granted when I go out to a bar, and been like, well, they wouldn't be interested in me because they're so out of my league or whatever. And completely downplaying, when I enter a conversation with somebody, I have stuff to say. And I have, you know, like I bring a lot to the table. And why have I spent decades of my life treating what I have to offer like it's garbage? That it doesn't, and it goes back to what we were saying about reality television, when they're casting people. If you're only casting people based on looks, or primarily on looks, personality is so much more important.
Absolutely.
Sorry, that was a very long monologue, but the question about the hair runs so deep with me.
Oh, I knew that's where we were going, because, you know, here's the thing, like, kind of going back to what I was saying in the beginning of this show about you know, you and I have had so many of the same experiences that you have had. So you, before Big Brother and then even throughout, I've always, like, looked up to you if your struggles knowing when you talk about them on your podcast, or like when you talked about your hair and you did that on YouTube and you did those things, you also talked about like painting your fingernails and you were never allowed to like, do that. That spoke so much to me and was inspiring to me because I was the same thing, the youngest of, you know, all of my siblings. I was beat up every single day in school. My family found out I was gay when I was beat up and thrown over the fence into my yard, and they were like, "Your kid's gay." So like I was never allowed to be me, never allowed to, you know, do it, and just always listening to how you navigated through your things or your mental health issues and things like that has been so inspirational to me. So I don't know if maybe you don't hear that from people, but I know that if it was for me, I'm sure it is for many other people. So while yes, your struggle is your struggle, I hope you know that it's also probably helped a lot of people navigate their issues in their own lives.
I appreciate you saying that. And people have told me, especially when I was younger and I was just starting off with the podcast or, you know, doing more performance poetry, I would have people email me all of the time, I mean, pretty regularly, and say that. But there is a mechanism, and I'm not proud of this, but I mean, it's just kind of the way that I'm built, and I'm trying to get better at it. You know, it's an area that I need to grow on. Is when I love positive feedback. I love positive attention. But when people try to tell me that stuff, I disconnect from it.
Me too.
I feel very uncomfortable. It's kind of like in academia, we're constantly giving awards to ourselves, right? Like, here's the book of the year or academic of the year, or, you know, like whatever. The National Communication Association has a zillion different divisions, and every division gives out 5 or 6 awards every year. So you can imagine, like, that's just like any other industry. So I love getting an award, but I don't want to be there to receive it. I don't want to be there to hear anybody say anything nice about me. It makes me feel wildly uncomfortable. And so the hardest thing is when somebody puts in writing, you have shared this experience in your life. This is what I have gone through, and this is how meaningful what you shared has been to my life, because my brain just shuts down. I don't know what it is, and it's something, again, yeah, I have to work on it. I mean,
I've always said, like, mine is more so like, I was very good in school. I was a very good student. I was an A student. So people compliment me in the sense of like, Nicole, you're so smart. Nicole, you figured that out. Nicole, you're so, that I can accept. But like my demons, I can't accept. So if someone's like, oh my God, you're so beautiful, I get really weirded out. I don't know what to say to it. So I'm just like, yeah. Like, and I think it's because growing up, I was always like, yeah, I am smart. Yeah, I proved it. I get A's, you know, but beauty and all that kind of stuff is more like, oh, I don't want to accept that from you because I don't know how to take that. I've never heard myself say that, you know? So it's more,
yeah.
I'm gonna need you to figure it out, Reagan, because like I said, I look to you for how I'm supposed to process things, and I am the same exact way. A lot of people know this, Nicole and I have said it. The reason we started Hello Friends, like as the show and the podcast, was just from our other shows. So many people would write to us and say things to us, and it would be so emotional, and we wouldn't. I say we don't have the time to reply to it, but it is also, I don't have the ability to reply to it. I can't handle those emotions either.
Yep.
I can't handle someone saying to me, I'm going through chemo and your show is the thing that made me laugh. I appreciate you so much. I'm used to being the person that's beat up and told that I'm horrible or going to hell, or so it's like I'm the same as you. I don't know how to process it when people compliment. I think a lot of people are like that.
I think so.
it may be as simple as I'm going to liken it to dealing, like if somebody has died, you know, somebody, and let's say their father has died or whatever. And maybe this is a really horrible analogy, but again, I'm just still trying to figure this out for myself. Like when my father died, I didn't need anybody to do anything like bring me a casserole I just needed people to just kind of like acknowledge like, hey, this sucks and I'm sorry for you, and anything that you need, I'm here for you. And so maybe the answer is, I think one of the things that overwhelms me when I get a kind note is I feel like I need to be so thoughtful and lengthy in my response to demonstrate like I hear you and I see you, and instead it has the counter effect where I can't write anything because I know the enormity of what I feel like I should be responding to. And so then it makes me a jerk because I'm not communicating the proper way. So maybe it's as easy as keeping it short and sweet and saying, I so appreciate that, you know, that you've written me and shared this with me and trusted me with it.
Yeah.
And I see you. You know, maybe it's as simple as that.
That is what I do now. I try and always make sure that I always like say thank you for sharing that. That means a lot. You know, that's and it becomes that thing where I'm hoping that in time, and not to say that I don't mean it, it almost has to be like an automatic reply, because if I let myself feel that, like if I take in the emotions of everything that you've said, I don't know how I would get through my day, but I do appreciate it. So I'm like, I appreciate you letting me know this. Thank you for sharing your story. It is why I think all of us keep doing what we do as far as entertaining people or giving back or doing shows. I think that's ultimately why all of us do it, is because we want to help people.
Yeah. That's certainly part of it. It's certainly part of it. I mean, we all just want to be understood and appreciated, and not everybody. I mean, I can tell just speaking to the two of you. I mean, you. This seems very natural. Like it comes natural to the two of you, and not everybody has that. You know what I mean? Like everybody has a podcast these days, but not everybody has a good show, and so it's meaningful that you have the audience that you do. And I can tell, like, the people who support you are so supportive of you, and I know that just from when I get rated by people who watch you on Twitch, you know, and they're so lovely, and they're there with you, even if it means that they're going to fall asleep while you're watching Zelda. And that's special. And it's especially important during the pandemic. But it's easy to not take it for granted.
Yep.
It's not taking it for granted. It's almost like to truly appreciate the enormity of the impact that you can have is overwhelming. It's overwhelming. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and I think it's a testament to, you can build whatever you want. When I started, and while people probably will never be able to find it, the first interview I ever did was with Ragan, because when my first real job of doing all this was with Superpass, and I remember Chelsea was in charge, and she said, who would you want as your first guest? Who's your favorite Big Brother player? I was like, Ragan. And she's like, let's do it. That was the worst interview I've ever did. I don't even understand how you sat there the whole time. It was a nightmare of epic proportion. Anyway, it is, I always knew going forward, yes, I wanted to be funny. Yes, I wanted to be comedic. Yes, we're going to get to be sarcastic. But what we're not going to be in building a community is hateful or mean to each other. So I've always been good about, I don't allow that in our chats or in our community. And then, when Nicole started becoming a part of everything with me, obviously she is of that same mindset of mental health and kindness
Yeah.
and compassion. So it was easy to just keep it going. And the thing that I will always be most proud of, which maybe is a bad thing to say, will not be the shows when this all ends. It will be the community that was formed around them. Because, like you said, they really are the most caring, compassionate, supportive, loving people that have changed my life in so many ways.
Yeah. Well, and it's unfortunate that there is a segment of the Big Brother fandom that is super toxic, and then that gets used as an umbrella for everybody who is a fan of the show, and that's just not the case. I mean,
No.
this is
That's such a
11
small portion. They're just
small
loud.
portion, but they're super loud, right? I mean, I've had so many people 11 years later who continue to be wonderful to me, and luckily I'm at a place in my life where I can, even though I still struggle with it, I can receive it a lot better than I could
Yeah.
11 years ago.
Yeah. It is.
But
It's a family. Go ahead, Nicole.
it's tough because they are loud, and what I always say is, yeah, I have days where it's like, whatever, I don't care, like I'm not what, and yeah, there's days when if you're not having a good day and you see something, it's like, oh well, that wasn't a nice thing to write. It's just because
Yeah.
they're
Why tag me on
so
this?
loud.
Why tag me on this? If you don't like
Yeah.
me, fine. But I mean, and it's still like now that they have on CBS All Access, that
Yes.
people can watch back seasons. So I have just a couple weeks ago, I had somebody tag me on something on Instagram. I'm like, this was 11 years ago. Get well soon.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
It's Paramount
So true.
Plus now, Reagan. There
Oh,
is
okay.
no more CBS All Access. Now it is Paramount Plus.
Oh, that sounds great.
That's
I like anything with Mount in it.
Yes, and I love it. And I think that's why, because they really have been pushing all of the Big Brother seasons on it as like a real draw. So I think that might be.
I think you're saying you liked it because of Mount. I was like,
well,
wow,
we
we're
all
just
like
going for Mount?
mounting, Nicole. We're getting.
This trivia. I'm being honest, and I won't get us back down this path, but I just need to say it because if I don't say it, it's going to bother me.
Reagan,
I
you have
don't
a
say-
booger in your hair. It's been there the entire time. It's a long green booger, and now I've said it.
No, like I don't say things just to say them. I really don't. So I genuinely mean this, and I promise I won't get emotional. But like, just the way things have been going recently, and like coming off of All Stars, especially the last like couple months, it's just been a lot of like transition for me, and a lot of what you're talking about is kind of like what I'm experiencing now, even like with you growing your hair out and wanting to like be you. That's something that I'm currently I say trying to figure out. Like I know Nicole nope maybe she's gonna come, but I know Nicole's in there, and sometimes I lose sight of her and I'm not sure where she is, but like just hearing you say that, like I'm so inspired and like just motivated by you, and I'm so thankful that you're on the show. I'm so thankful that you're on the show today, because I think you're here for a reason, and I really appreciate it so much.
Yeah, I could tell that you when I was getting emotional, you were getting emotional, so I can see that, I can feel it. Out of curiosity, now this is going to sound very Southern California in this question, but I'm going to take it in a different direction. Have you ever done yoga or meditation?
I have not. I did meditation in high school around I'll be honest, around the time that there was a lot of like deaths in the family.
Okay.
And it made me think too much. And instead of clearing my mind, I would think about those things. It would make me cry. It would make me have panic attacks. And I vowed, like, I'm never doing that again. So that is something that I have gone to therapy. I've started therapy a couple months ago for the first time in my life. But breathing meditation is something I think I should start implementing, and just let the emotions come.
Yeah, so the first time I did yoga, I went with my friend Corey, and I just I could nonstop crying at the end of it.
That's what would happen to me.
Yeah, but so I don't actively practice yoga or meditation anymore. But the direction that I want to go in this with you is just kind of a useful metaphor that I would recommend doing one or the other or both for an extended period of time, let's say at least 6 months. I think I did yoga for a year or a year and a half, and it kicked my butt. It was not easy for me. And getting into those poses were so uncomfortable. It's so much harder than it looks. But one of my big takeaways from it is that when you're doing yoga, you have to accept the fact that where you are is where you are, like where your body is where it is. So you'll be in a class with people who are like putting their legs behind their head and doing all this crazy and can hold a pose and don't break a sweat. And you're like, why can't I be this person? Because our tendency is to look around at other people and be like, I want to be as good as they are. I want to be as good as they are, right? And that's such a metaphor for like every aspect of our lives, right? Like I want to be as worthy as this person or that person. And so like a good yoga instructor will make you realize that you are where you are, and as far as you can bend is as far as you can bend that day, and you push yourself to the best of your ability, but you have to deeply accept where you are, and that is part of the practice of it. And so when you show up to, they say like showing up to the mat, that's part of it. You have to habituate into it. And so the reason why I bring this up is because part of learning to love myself, and not in that weird esoteric way, but like really, really starting this journey, that is that it's not like a light switch goes off and you go, oh, this is who Ragan is and I love him, right? It's like every fucking day I have to wake up and I have to be cognizant of, like for instance, one of the things that makes me hate myself is if somebody instigates me and brings crazy to my door, I'm like, oh, you want to get crazy? Guess what? I can get crazy. You want to try to hurt my feelings? I'll hurt your feelings. I know I can hurt your feelings. And then I walk away from it and I feel like utter garbage and I beat myself up over it for weeks. And why did I do that? Why did I take the bait? And it could be something as like road rage, right? Yeah. Where like somebody does something, they're not going fast enough or whatever. And I start just like cursing them out. And so, part of the trick of it is mindfulness of being in the situation and going, okay, I'm in a situation where I'm about to be triggered. I can feel myself tilting, like if you're playing a video game, like a pinball game, and you're like, I'm about to tilt, and being aware of it, because that's what short circuits the process and makes you go, okay, here's how I had to talk myself down off of that ledge. And that's why a lot of the times when I drive, I do live shows, or, like because I have to hold myself accountable to the people who are watching me so I don't go off the handle. So applied to your situation as you're going through this journey, as we all go through this journey, those of us who are willing to evolve and want to invest in ourselves and learn to love ourselves, and not everybody wants to do that, is really understanding what it means to incorporate that practice in your life, knowing that you're never, ever going to get to a point where suddenly it stops being work. It's going to be work for the rest of your life. And to combat that, when somebody tells you that you're beautiful, to recognize here's the voice that's saying that, call me smart, but don't call me beautiful. And it trickles down to every single aspect of our life. We have a million voices in our head that will convince us that we are shit, that we are not worth it, that we are imposters, that we are, the thing is that everybody goes through this. Some people are more open about it than others, and other people don't care to improve. They're like, you hear it all the time. This is who I am. If you don't like it, tough. This is who I am. I guess you don't like me. That's not a way to go about being in life. I don't want to be the person who is reactive. And going through Big Brother, this is another part of the trial by fire thing. Anybody who would, when I came off the show, send me a mean tweet, I felt like, oh, I'm going to be mean to you. I'm going to figure out something to say. your profile picture is an egg. You must be so unattractive that you have, rather than looking at it as an opportunity to go, I'm being tested right now. This is, and my character is like a muscle. And how I respond to this, like, sorry, I know I'm talking a lot. I have a tendency to do this.
No,
I follow, oh gosh, what's his name on Twitter? He's a shorter, Patton Oswalt.
oh yes, yep.
And Patton Oswalt, the way that he deals with quote unquote haters is just brilliant. He was in the news a couple of years ago because this guy was just trying to eviscerate him and saying all this mean stuff to him on social media. And he was like, he does something that I sometimes do if somebody's being mean to me. I'm like, I'm going to go and I'm just going to look at this person's feed just to see what's going on. He did that, and he learned by going to his social media feed that that he had just been diagnosed with some really bad illness and didn't have the insurance in order to cover it. Pat Oswalt, I'm getting emotional thinking about this. Pat Oswalt, rather than fighting fire with fire, was like, hey, just so you know, back-channeled him, just so you know, I went through your feed and saw what's happening, and I could see where you might be lashing out, and I would like to offer to pay for your treatments for X, Y, and Z. And it radically transformed that guy's viewpoint. But it takes, I mean, I'm definitely not at that Zen level yet, but even to short circuit the process to where if somebody is sending you a tweet that's not nice and where you go, why are you attaching my name to this? Like, just say my name. Why do you have to tag me on something that's going to make me feel crappy?
Yep.
Look at it as an opportunity to learn to love yourself rather than to feed the voices that already try to pull you down. And it's hard.
Very hard.
It's harder than exercise. It's the hardest mental thing that you can imagine.
I would just like to say that I reserve my crying for 1:30 a.m. A lot of people that know me know I have a very busy day between my parents, my hubs who is disabled. We do these shows. That is when, and yes, I say this as a joke kind of on this show, but it's also true. Like, that is a way that I have to compartmentalize it. I know, like, 1:30-ish in the morning when I am alone, I can go in my backyard and just cry. And that is how, like right now it's Show Eric. So Show Eric will not cry.
This is the first time. I haven't cried on a show in a while, right, Eric? I've been very good.
You've been very good, but I know Ragan is literally speaking to all the things that you're currently dealing with, so I feel like you're holding it together well.
Thank you. I'm holding it together very well. I'm proud of myself.
And let me tell you. What? Go ahead, Ragan.
Oh, no, you go. I've been talking so much.
I was just going to say, let me tell you, Ragan, Nicole loves advice from 40-year-old gays. Me, Kevin, you. It's her favorite people. Like, she will take this advice. You're going to see a whole new Nicole tomorrow. Get ready.
Yeah, you said you were going to therapy, and and I'm sure it's something kind of like, at a gut level, but it's really important that you end up with a therapist, because I've gone to therapy before and had therapists where I was like, I'm not really getting anything out of this, right? And so my current therapist, who I actually haven't seen since the lockdown started, but every single session I would walk out kind of like this exchange that we're having, Nicole, where I'm like, oh my God, I'm making connections right now. And the thing that's profound about it is the answers were always right there. It's not stuff that I didn't know, but it was like the ability
to see it.
Really see it. Yeah. And so my hope is that with your therapist, that, when you get to the end of each session, you're going, because there are times where I would go in, I always felt a responsibility to like, okay, what am I going to talk about today? So fill the hour. And And then there would be some days where I'm like, I don't have anything to talk about. But then at the end of the session, I'd be like, I didn't think I had anything to talk about. And suddenly,
That's what I will like be open to the fact that like especially in the beginning going to therapy, I would walk in and be like, it's not your problem. You don't worry about it. Like we don't have to talk about that. Like I was very, this is not your cross to bear. This is not your burden. It's fine. I'm fine. We don't have to work through that. We don't have to work through this. We don't have to talk about that. And immediately became very comfortable with her. And that's exactly how I feel when I leave each session. Like I'm emotionally exhausted after each session, but I feel like, the little baby steps toward, like I said, and I know it's like you're saying, not a concrete thing, but just finding Nicole that's not the daughter Nicole or just the sister Nicole or just BB Nicole. Like I'm trying to like morph all of it and see, like you're saying, see the Nicole that's right there that I ignore and then I put the blocks up and that I don't genuinely answer. Like I know she's there, I hear what she says, but I too often, well, I don't want to make this person mad, or well, I was America's favorite, I don't want to do anything the wrong way that makes people go, oh, you changed. And I did get death threats, I don't want that to occur again. So I do a lot of like, don't say that. And I lose sight of her sometimes.
Yeah. Having faith in yourself and your values and what you believe. And Elizabeth Olsen, who is Wanda, right? Is that WandaVision?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, right? Yeah.
So she was saying that the best piece of advice that her sisters, who are of course the Olsen twins, gave her, it is that no is a complete sentence. And I've heard that before, but I was like, and that logic extends beyond just no, like telling somebody no, but it's like anything that you believe, or you don't have to justify or rationalize to anybody else in order, like there are going to be certain people who are intent on misunderstanding you, right? So, and nothing that you say is going to make them understand your point of view. And so, but it takes to me, the beauty of when she shared that was, I thought, it's so simple, but it's so meaningful to be confident enough in yourself. Like, so when somebody says, you need to cut your hair, being like, no, no.
And that's what I say, I don't want to is a reason.
Yeah.
So like if someone's like, come out to this party, no, I don't want to. Why? And we grow up with like, I'll say my parents won't allow it. I'll say I don't have the car. I'll say the weather's bad. And it's like, no, I don't want to is a reason. Like that's enough to say to somebody, no, I don't want to. That's it. You don't need to come up with an excuse. You don't have to come up with a reason. You don't have to try to rationalize it. You not wanting to is a rational thought.
Yeah, here's a little bit of podcast drama that I probably shouldn't share, but my life is an open book. So I've worked on a political podcast that we started like 15 years ago, and we decided to reboot it, and we were going to have, we've tried to be very mindful now of having conversations about race, given that we are 3 white people, right? And we're going to have certain blind spots because of that. And so we were going to talk about the Oscar nominees and the role of race in film. And I'm the perfect person to bring onto the show for this. My friend Marsalis, who is also on Big Brother, and he is working on a book right now called Supreme Actors, which is all about Black Hollywood, and he would just be the perfect person to bring onto the show. Well, the week leading up to it was also the week that Sharon Osbourne got into a lot of trouble for her racism. So we also wanted to discuss this topic. So I went into the text message thread where we were pitching topics with one another, and I was like, look, given that we have Marsalis on the show, can we do the 3 other topics, because we typically will pitch 5 topics for the show. The 3 other topics, can we not center race? Because I don't want to bring Marsalis onto the show and make him feel tokenized, like, okay, we can only talk about race now. And so then one of the co-hosts was like, well, what about beheadings in Mozambique? And I was like, okay, how can I explain this? Like, I just asked that we not do center race, and now you're pitching a topic about beheadings in an Eastern African country. And he's like, this has nothing to do with race. I'm like, we would be bringing a Black person on the show and then asking him to discuss a country in Africa, which kind of plays on all. So at any rate, we found each other in this like weird exchange that eventually completely derailed us from doing the show. So now the show is, oh yeah. And so I was going over it in my head, going like, beyond, even if you don't agree with the intellectual aspects of what I'm saying, about how bringing on a Black co-host and then wanting to discuss beheadings in an African country that might make him feel as if his race is implicated, and now he has to represent Africa in ways that he may not want to do or feel comfortable with doing, with the way that Black people are commonly called upon to do that. Even if you don't agree with the intellectual part of that, I simply want to have a friend come on to the show, and I don't feel comfortable having my friend discuss this topic. That's enough. And that should be enough, and there should be no more conversation. And so to your point, it's like, I've had to, over the past, because it's been 2 weeks since this has happened, and I'm somebody who will just turns over my brain over and over and over and over and over again. And the way I've come to peace with it is boiling it down to precisely what you're saying. I don't want to do it is enough.
That's it.
I don't feel comfortable doing it is enough. So as much as I may be saying stuff to you that you need to hear, you're telling me stuff that I need to hear, right?
So are you saying that you're not doing that, that you're not going to be doing that show anymore? Or just specifically that with Marcellus coming on in that topic?
I think the conversation turned left in such a way where, it's ironic because the week before we had done a show, and one of our big stories that week was about friendship and about how there's all this literature that teaches you how to get into a romantic relationship and to exit a romantic relationship. You go to the self-care section of a bookstore, it's loaded with that stuff, right? But friendships far outnumber our romantic relationships, and there's no literature that tells you what is the way to get out of a friendship or to negotiate, some type of argument, or there's none of that. So that's why people, when friendships end, it can feel even worse than a breakup, because there's no protocol for like, okay, well, I need closure. You'd probably need more closure in a friendship. So one of the things that we talked about in this episode was that, it's really important when somebody cries uncle in a friendship that you respect that. Like if somebody says my feelings are being hurt, that shouldn't be a point for like a topic of debate where you dig in your heels. It should be like, oh, if you feel that way, you're my friend. I don't want to make you feel that way. And so let's stop this and get on a better track. So I cried uncle in the conversation and was told that this person was not in control of my feelings. This wasn't a therapy session, and that I was being emotionally manipulative. And I was like, you know what? I can't. We just had this conversation.
Yeah.
In friendship in the previous podcast.
I mean, here's what I will say. Do you not want the name of the show mentioned?
I mean, I guess now it could be mentioned because it's pretty. I mean, anybody who listens to the show would know.
Because here's what I'm going to say, because I think you guys have done a lot of good things together. I know everything that you're talking about because I listened to it. So, I mean, I was going to tell people that a lot of the things you're talking to Nicole about are things that I have heard you discuss in these. And granted, I think there's only like 3 or 4 of them up, but on that podcast. But then you guys also, don't you also do the pod Save the Queens together too, right?
Yeah.
So is it kind of, I had this whole thing all about your podcast, all ready to promote them, Ricken.
Eric is ready.
that content is already up, so it's not going anywhere, and it's good
Right.
content.
Yeah.
And I don't look at either of them with like malintent or my takeaway is that Madge and I are the ones who are experiencing a bulk of the problems right now,
Right.
interpersonally. And I've known Madge for 16 years. We've been in working relationships and had a friendship for that long. This is the first time that we've ever gotten into some disagreement. And my read of it, and I don't know this to be true, but I just know it to be true in my own life, that when I lash out, it tends to not be about what it's really about, and there may be something else going on in my life, or whatever the case. So I'll be there to have a conversation with Madge whenever she feels like we need to have a conversation. But and I think that Madge is a wonderful person. There's so many, I look at this for kind of what it is, and friendships have ebbs and flows to them. But when it comes to like, am I willing to take something that is a hobby and have it turn into that much emotional labor, when it should have been as easy as, Nicole and I are saying, I don't want to do this,
Yep.
Well,
and it be respected.
I will put it to you this way, because I think it's going to be easier to do it this way, because now there's already a million people asking. So we'll say it this way. These are the shows that Ragan is on, or the podcast that he has been a part of previously. You can go check them out. There is the, Eat This Hot Show. There is Pod Save the Queens. And then there is the one...
Oh, go ahead.
And then there is the one that I have been listening to since before Big Brother, and that's Fox and the City. And I recommend going back. Have you archived them? I know I reached out to you at one point when I think you were saying the server fees and the things to host all of your shows. And I was like, oh God, Ragan, please do not get rid of all of your early content. So is there still a way for people to listen to your early podcast?
No, and the reason why is, so I have all of the content. I have all of the early shows, and when I rebooted Fox in the City, and now it's like Fox in the City, the next generation, or the new generation, or something like that. I started like a show called Zombie Fox in the City, and Zombie Fox in the City was like, every week I would post like 4 episodes of the old show. And I went back and listened to some of the older shows, and I just thought, wow, some of this is just so inconsistent with my worldview right now. Some of like the characters that I would do are just not, they're just not reflective of my values and the way that I think anymore. And so I wasn't comfortable. I felt like reposting those shows would have suggested that I
still in that place.
Yes. Yeah.
I hear that.
And so that's why. And so the more recent content is more, I think, like, this is who I am now.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't remember the specifics at all, but I remember one of the shows when you were talking about Anna Nicole, and it was literally the conversations that like my friends and I would have to be like, you have to listen to this podcast. Like he says the same things we say. Like
somebody asked me on Twitch to do an Anna Nicole impersonation, but had no idea that I don't think, at least to my knowledge, didn't know, like, I'm like, oh yeah, I can do an Anna Nicole. I could do an Anna Nicole. Want some money? Like my body? Yeah, like I loved Anna Nicole Smith.
Can you do Nicole Anthony?
I would need more time. I felt like after the intro, because I've dominated the conversation, like the bossy bottom that I am.
No, we love it.
Ragan, people hear from us all day. Like we have a show every day. We like it. That's why because here's the other point I was going to make. People that want to hear just from Ragan, he's doing a lot of Twitch right now. playing
Yes.
games, chatting with, you, but you're also doing Reagan Reacts on YouTube. You're
Yeah.
doing a lot of these things where people can just have just you by yourself to communicate with. And I think that is something that people will enjoy. But I lost my point. I had some point of
Well,
how I was tying that all together and I lost it.
there's a little bit for everybody. So,
There is.
I met this one woman named Juma Pili doing Oculus Rift VR. And
Mhm.
so she likes it when I'm really intellectual. So she would try to watch my Reagan Reacts, which now they're called Saturday afternoon public freakouts, because I go to the subreddit for public freakouts and watch all those videos with other people and have a soundboard, and it's fun. But she was like, that's not what people want from you. They want, like, after I did the gender fluidity video, she's like, this is exactly what I want and what everybody wants from you. That's what. And I'm like, yeah, but that's just like one part of me. Like, I can't always, like, I went really deep with y'all today, but I also love kind of turning my brain off and watching people fight with each other at the Apple store over wearing masks and making fun of them. And like, we're all multifaceted, it can't always be deep, dramatic conversations. It's always like a good fart joke.
Yeah,
of course. I will say this, like, yes, this is one part of your personality. When I think of you, and I know that you do get deep and into these topics in a way that I will never be able to intellectually, but your shows are also very comedic that you have done and funny as well. I will say, if people like me and when I do comedic things around here, you'll definitely love listening to the things that Reagan does as well. But to that point, Reagan, you brought it up. Nicole hates when I mention it. Have you seen the Oculus porn yet? Are you?
Oh, I have. It gives me a headache.
Oh, no, it does not give me a headache.
I've tried it because I was like, this would be really great.
Yeah, me too. First thing I did.
Yeah, first thing you did.
Yep,
yeah,
first
I
thing
want
I
to
did.
say one thing about Eat This Hot Show just before that, and that portion of the conversation ends, and that is that I just want to acknowledge that doing a show about politics a weekly show about politics is not easy. No. And especially if people clash on issues or are not on the same page when it comes to issues, and especially talking about race right now is very difficult. And you can see it, like when I watch The View, I could, like, when Meghan McCain has to talk, you can just tell she just like hates her job. Like, I could tell because of the emotional labor that goes on, that's part of the job for her, right? And so I don't want to, like Pod Save the Queens is a totally different type of show with the same two other co-hosts where we never had any problems and everything was really great and we had fun, but it wasn't as political as Eat This Hot Show. So I just want to make it clear that me kind of venting about what happened, it's still fresh. But I think that both Madge and Deborah are wonderful people and tremendously talented, and I'm sure that we'll get back on the same page someday, maybe in the form of a podcast. But
here's what I was saying before. Reagan, our audience is not a dramatic, shit stirring, they're gonna go cause a problem. So you don't have to worry about that. And I don't know if you saw my face. I was like, this is breaking news. Is that why I haven't gotten a new episode? Like, I'm devastated. I love you guys all talking together. I believe that you guys will work it out. And I don't think anybody thinks that you were being mean-spirited about that. You were sharing, a moment on what you and Nicole were talking about.
It's a real moment. I mean, and it happens. But when we first started Eat This Hot Show 15 years ago, it was me, Madge, Wanda Wisdom, and Fausto Fernos and Mark Felian from Feast of, now they call it Feast of Fun podcast. Yep. And we had a really bad falling out with the Feast of Fun guys. And so they got kicked off the show and it became this big dramatic thing. And and it's just a categorically different experience, right? Yeah. This break. Yeah.
And here's the thing, and I was listening to you guys back then, and I remember you guys never talked about it. So there's always this big mystery of trying to figure out why, I mean, you guys kind of on Eat This Hot Show, they went off on their own, yes, and, kind of talked about it. And we're talking about issues from years and years and years ago. But it is funny, not funny, but it, today in this society, in these times, that would be used for everything with modern podcasts. It would be, now we're fighting with that podcast.
Yeah.
Let's promote our Twitter war at 1 p.m.
Yeah.
That's going to get people to come to our live show at 7:30. And
Right.
it's so, my point is, you have always been real. The people that you have done shows with have been real. And I think that people feel that, and I can see from the chats, they are getting that. And there's people watching on Twitch and YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and now, so they're all getting it. They're all very moved by this show and said submit it for an Emmy.
I agree.
But Nicole, we do. I can't believe how long that we've gone, and we do kind of have to wrap it up. But I know Nicole has a very serious and important topic she wants to end on, which is probably going to suck us right down into another emotional hole.
Okay. The topic I want to discuss is Ragan. They have made Peeps Pepsi. How do we feel about this?
I've never been a Peeps person.
No.
Yeah.
Well, haven't we, Ragan?
Why does nobody like Peeps?
I mean, Nicole, it is a little weird. It's a little weird. Peeps are a little weird.
No,
are
they're
they
not.
marshmallows covered with sugar? What is it?
It's marshmallow in crystally sugar with two little brown eyes, and you just eat them, and they're filled with joy and amazingness, and I love them. And I know the average person could eat like one or two. I could eat a whole sleeve in one setting.
No.
You really don't know what Peeps are? That is so California. Floridian.
I mean,
I want to say Floridian.
I've just never been, like I remember at Easter, sometimes they would have like a sugar egg too that was just like made out of pure grain sugar. I was like, what is that? No, I'll tell you what, my nieces, for the first time in my life, I bought Girl Scout cookies because
how'd that go?
Okay. Well, first of all, I've been nooming since June. And so I have to really be careful about my sugar intake, and I have such a sweet tooth. But I got 2 packs of Samoas and 2 packs of Tagalongs. And so I already knew that Samoas I like because they have a Keebler version called Coconut Dreams, which are delicious. But Tagalongs, it's a whole different experience. But not really. I mean, a lot of cookies approximate it. It's chocolate and peanut butter, and then a really crunchy cookie, and it hits everything for me. Like my tongue is just, that's like with a Peep, it's just mushy.
It's disgusting.
I love marshmallow, I love sugar, and it is just it's just perfect.
But hold on, isn't a marshmallow just basically sugar?
Yeah.
So it's sugar coated in sugar.
See, this is a very Matt Hoffman thing to say. If he's watching this, he's like, right now, like, I agree with this is my Matt Hoffman. I agree with Nicole. It's delicious. If basically everything that you're eating in the Girl Scout cookies is sugar. This just condenses it and makes it all sugar.
Exactly. Yeah. Mine's simple. Yours is chocolatey sugar and peanut buttery sugar and cookie sugar. No, mine's just sugar.
You and Matt Hoffman could be siblings. I swear.
I know.
You and Matt Hoffman
I know.
could be siblings.
I was going to quote.
I always say it.
I was going to quote Daniel Donato from All Stars. There's a great clip of like Nicole is in the bathroom being Nicole with Daniel Donato. And Danny like looks at Nicole and she goes, "You really just exist on sugar. Like, we just need to give you cookies, baked, not baked." She like, Danny just goes off on this monologue about Nicole and sugar, and it was one of my favorite moments from All Stars.
Sugar's great. I get it though.
And Reagan, I gave up soda for Lent.
Mhm.
So the
Oh,
fact that there's a peak Pepsi somewhere waiting for me when Easter's over, I need to make that happen.
So hold on, is the Pepsi, is it just like in the shape of a Pepsi, or is there actual Pepsi in it?
it is peep
No.
flavored Pepsi.
Yes.
Or marshmallow flavored Pepsi. Here's the thing, they are not selling it. You have to win it on social media.
Oh,
Yet me, being sick of hearing Nicole talk about this so much, have went and found her actual Peeps soda, which she can purchase right now on Amazon, so we never have to hear about the Pepsi Peep soda again. Because I, as a gay man, every time someone says Peeps, it makes me feel awkward.
no, but I still want to win the Peeps Pepsi, and I have a whole plan in place.
Okay.
Now, I will say, I know we have to wrap up, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm having too much fun.
Okay, go ahead.
But when I
Fine.
started Noom, I stopped drinking soda. I mean, I drink like a seltzer or a Perrier or whatever, and that has been very transformative, I think, because sugar soda pop is just so, it's like empty calories. It's so bad for you. And
Yeah.
I've been drinking iced tea instead, but not sugar tea or sweet tea is just as bad. So
Snapples.
yeah, that's
The-
probably not good. You need it to be like 0 calorie. I mean, you don't need it, but like I needed it because I was starting to blow up.
Now, I did that same exact thing, Reagan, and developed kidney stones because
What?
turns out
Yep.
my body can't process that much of the caffeine. So now I have to do like, no, I was drinking diet. No, I wasn't. Whatever it was,
Right.
when they took the kidney stone, they were like, do you drink iced tea? And I'm like, gallons. And they're like, yeah, this is pure iced tea. You have and I had to cut it out completely to stop getting kidney stones.
And I heard my father had kidney stones and said it was the most painful thing that he's ever experienced.
It is, I don't know what giving birth is like. I will say the women in my life that have also had kidney stones said it is that painful. I laid on my shower floor naked and I was letting my friends in there. My friends haven't seen me with my shirt off in my whole life. I'm like naked on the bathroom floor screaming for help.
That's
When you don't
me
feel
every
good,
night
you'll
though.
get crap.
Yeah. Oh,
After I end my Twitch, I take off all my clothes. I get into a really hot shower, get on the ground of the shower like Fiona Apple in the Criminal video, and just scream for help.
yeah.
No.
We all probably
I
do.
would say, as a lady, not that I've given birth or had kidney stones, but I feel like giving birth is natural. It's supposed to come out of that hole. But a kidney stone, that ain't supposed to pass through that. So I imagine that's more painful.
Yeah.
It feels like
Totally.
it feels like burning hot knives ripping through you, and I, as someone who has broken my leg and had all of these things happen to me in my life, the one distinction that I will tell you about a kidney stone is, you know how every other pain you get, the pain like, oh, it hurt, I moved, or like the pain comes and goes, the kidney stone pain starts and it only ramps up. There's no break. There's no it gets better. There's no it's coming in waves. It starts at a 1 and it will end at a 90 before you pass it. How long did I have it for? I think it lasted 12 hours.
Oh God.
By hour 10, I honestly was like, I said out loud, like, I can die. It's okay if I just need to die to make this stop. Like,
Now,
make it stop.
could they give you anything, like any type of anything to numb the pain?
Never said this on a show before. No, because I don't have insurance. So I knew that I couldn't go to a hospital. So again, keep in mind, my friends have never seen me shirtless or naked or anything. My lifelong best friend was convinced that it was not a kidney stone, that he thought I was in some way constipated.
It's all close.
So he brought an enema bag to me.
Oh no.
which I have never used in my life. And he's like, this is what you got to do. And I have never put anything there before. So I was like, okay. And I put it in and I opened the valve, and that is what shot it out.
Oh, really?
Because I guess the
Ye-
pressure up
Yep.
there caused it to come out.
Oh,
It-
yeah, that kind of makes sense. Yeah, yeah, I could see where that would happen. Well, thank God your friend showed up with that enema. Did it once you peed it out, were you just like, oh?
I went from in a ball crying, literally saying, let me die, to, should we order pizza? What do you guys want to do tonight? Like,
Did you see it?
Oh,
Is it
yeah.
like microscopic, or did you see it?
No, mine was it was big. It was a spiked ball. It is the most disgusting thing you've ever seen. Literally
still
a
have
spike.
An earring.
Yeah, I do still have it actually.
Or you
You
should do
do?
one of those pearl shows, where they
Yes.
sell the pearls, and you should be like, okay, I'm opening your pearl. Oh, this is an odd pearl.
I have no shame. People didn't care what I had to say. I feel like back when that happened, I was just eating the other night and my tooth broke in half and fell out of my mouth, and I just tweeted it. Somebody was like, Eric, why aren't you live? And I just tweeted me holding half of my molar in my hand. It was like, this is why.
How did it crack? How does that even happen?
It's been really bad.
cracking, and he needs to go to the dentist. That's what's
And
up.
it's
I'll yell at you now.
thousands
Go
of
to Reagan.
dollars that I can't afford. So I've been letting it go for the past year and a half, 2 years. It's finally
You
gotten
have to Google this stuff, because I know, like, normally Googling medical stuff, but like dental health is so important, and it's so connected to
your heart.
Yeah.
To everything. Yeah, you can't let that stuff go.
I know.
Very important.
Alan,
On that
yeah,
note,
On that note,
we're supposed to end on Pepsi Peeps.
I know,
God,
Pepsi,
so-
Lady Gaga Oreos. What do you think of them, Reagan?
Do you like Lady Gaga Oreos? They're pink and green and beautiful.
I have not had a Lady Gaga Oreo, the Chromatica Oreo.
Yeah.
I had to
Yes.
stop. I have to be very like,
I'm
so when
sorry.
I
Oh,
went to
'cause
the
of
grocery
Noom.
store, I was like a 6-year-old given a credit card, and I would get sugar everything, cookies everything, and now I have to be very discerning with what I buy. I
Yep.
can't overload, and Oreos are just too dangerous.
They are really dangerous. You can eat so many. I
They're
need to
so
stop too.
good.
The
So good.
first day that I moved out, Reagan, and like I was away from my parents, and same thing, we never had like sweets or snacks or anything in the house, like ever. So moved out, got my own apartment, and I literally remember going to the junk food aisle. I never had an Oreo, a Chips Ahoy, a Twinkie. I filled my whole cart with all junk food, went right to the register, and I remember that cashier looked right at me and were like, you okay? And she was like, break up. And I was like, I never got to eat these things. And then ever since then, yeah, I've been like, all I eat is junk food and fast food. Every meal.
It's hard. It's very hard to get out of
Yep.
that
Yeah,
that
cycle.
Yeah,
It is.
sugar is good. I mean, it just tastes so good.
It's
but
also
so bad
cheap.
for you.
Yeah.
It
There's
is.
no problem.
It's inexpensive. I mean, we definitely have a problem in the United States where there's Katie Couric has a documentary on Netflix. I forget, or not Netflix, Amazon Prime. I forget the name of it, but it's all about how basically sugar companies are the new tobacco companies. And one of the most disgusting parts of this is, how you have like the recommended daily allowance on the back of foods, and the sugar lobbies have made it to where they don't tell that is the only content that they don't have to tell you the percentage of the recommended daily value it is.
Oh yeah.
And it's and so in the 80s, type 2 diabetes was called adult onset diabetes, but they had to drop that name because kids have been consuming so much more sugar that it's no longer just something that emerges in adulthood. So the more you can do to wean yourself off sugar, which, by the way, I'm a complete hypocrite, because right after lunch I had a Pepperidge Farm cookie, and then I had 2 tagalongs, and then I'm gonna eat sugar tonight. But I think it's just the manageable stuff, like for me, get rid of Coke. You know, that's one small thing that I could do to make things better.
Yeah, I gave it up for Lent, and my face alone is so clear. And I think because sugar makes me break out, but I miss it. Just one peat Pepsi, and I can go the rest of the year.
You're an addict. You're like me playing Dead by Daylight, where I'm like, just one more round. Just no.
Is that the creepy game with the people on the hooks?
Yes.
Mhm.
I watched you play that. Scarred me for life.
Okay, see, this is where you and Matt would not be on the same page because Matt is a very big horror person, but in every other way, y'all are siblings.
Yeah, like I love Final Destination. I love Stay Alive. It freaks me out, but I love the Halloween series. I love the Jason Friday the 13th. But it like freaks me out. Like I like creepy, like game wise. I love Hello Neighbor. I love Haunting Ground. So I'm weird because I like creepy, but I don't. But I don't like being scared. But I do.
Actually, then I kind of get that because I'm a little bit the same way. I like horror, but I don't like gory stuff.
No,
I don't want to see somebody's eyeball being ripped into or any of like I just don't like that stuff. But I love scary. So I just at a scary movie, there are times where when when you know somebody's about to get decapitated or something where I have to like watch, don't turn away, but it is uncomfortable for me. So I get that kind of odd combo of feeling.
Yeah.
I am definitely I am the same way. I can't even listen to it. So I'm not even to the point where I can like not look. I can't hear it. Like there are certain like Saw, I cannot be in an area where people are even
Hostel. See, this is another weird thing where like I can't watch Hostel because it's torture porn. I don't like torture porn stuff, but I'm very I think the concept behind Hostel is very fascinating because it's something that I could see happening in real life. So I go to the Wikipedia pages and I've read the plots of Hostel and the sequel to Hostel, but I will not watch those movies.
Well, that's like Amityville. I will not drive past the house. I don't want to watch the movies.
You live in the neighborhood of it.
But I'm fascinated. Like I want to research it, find out more about it. Like I didn't know half the stuff that I'm being told about it, and I'm like, oh, now I'm fascinated. But I don't want to drive past the house and get bad mamma jamma juju that comes.
I'm not effing around with that. Like if you tell me, did you see the thing on Twitter where it was like the house that says not haunted?
No, I haven't seen that.
There's like a real estate person who put, like a sign that says like 4 bedrooms on the top of it. It said not haunted. So that became trending on Twitter. And then somebody took the Agatha meme with Agatha going like this under it. And so if you tell me that a place is haunted, and I'm not somebody who even believes in that stuff. Okay. I just want to have my bases covered. I'm not messing around with it. I don't want some entity to indicate that I'm wrong, that they actually exist. I don't want it attaching itself to me. And I'm just.
Exactly. I agree with that 100%. Why put yourself in a situation where if it is the case, it attaches to you or follows you home or gets mad at you for watching it, or like, oh, she drove past, she thinks she's so funny, now I'm in the backseat of her car.
Okay, I know we have to end, but I have to share this story because it just so perfectly fits. So my street in West Hollywood, people go and just dump stuff. They just dump garbage, and they clear out a lock or one of those storage lockers, and they want to get rid of it. They dump it all on my street. It happens all the time. So I'm constantly taking pictures of the garbage and stuff that people leave abandoned on my street. So there was one day that I was walking my dog and somebody had left like all this like gym equipment and stuff on my street. And then there was this like a glamour shot of this woman that was framed, and it's on my Instagram somewhere. So you can like scroll through and find it. And she's kind of like, has this 1980s hair, and it's like this, and it's just kind of a funny picture. And so I was thinking, God, I would really, this is just my sense of humor, I would really like to take that picture. And it's posed in front of a big vault, like at a bank. Like in her work, I mean, it's just everything about it is perfect. It's like the most perfect picture I've ever seen. It's cloudy and so I thought this would be perfect to take and then hang in my office because it will be a conversation starter. Students will come into my office, the dean will come into my office and be like, who was this woman? And I'd be like, that was me in the 1980s. Or, I wanted it so bad. I saw so much potential in taking this picture. And the thing that stopped me from taking it was, I swear to God, I was like, but if it's haunted and then like I bring it in, like it's a haunted item, there's no telling, maybe a murder, like she was murdered in the apartment by the Night Stalker. Her soul went into the photo. And now
one day you're sitting in your office, she disappears. You're like, where'd she go from the painting? Like someone comes into your office and like, oh, I was told you have a painting of a woman. I don't see anything. It's like dun dun dun. Like, you don't need that.
Why do you have a framed picture of a vault?
Oh,
you mean
God.
the lady? There's no lady. I just see a vault. Ah!
That's what I would do. Like if I knew someone who had that, I would like to screw with my friend. I would have someone repaint it then with the lady missing. And like
That's
sneak
so
in
fucked up.
and switch out the photo.
I love it so much.
That's what
love
I would
it so
do.
much. Yeah. Okay.
There is, I mean, you're more than welcome. To come back anytime you want, Ragan. We have not talked about our similar dogs. I know that you quitting smoking was helped me to quit smoking back in the day. I will never forget when you talked about like how having a cigarette is like bashing your head into the wall and expecting your headache to go away. I still remember you saying that as a thing that helped you stop smoking. There are so many things that we could just talk about for hours and hours. The main thing that I really wanted to do with this show is let our audience, let people know who like what we do, that if you like it, you'll probably also love what Ragan does.
Oh, thank you very much.
He's just way smarter than me.
No, don't say that. That's part of like what Nicole and I are saying, that we all have the like the everybody people are intelligent in different ways and have different knowledge bases and different vocabularies, and it becomes, I see this happen in graduate seminars a lot, where somebody might dominate a conversation and then it causes other people in the seminar to go, oh my gosh, I don't know as much as that guy. I'm like, but I see everything going on behind the scenes. I'm like, no, he knows a lot about that one thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he talks about it a lot. And so it causes you to feel like you're an imposter, and that's not the case. And it's oftentimes the people who seem the most humble, the least likely to assert their intelligence or whatever, they turn in their final papers, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the best work I've ever seen. Yep. So everybody has, I can speak about certain things in a certain manner that may make it seem like, you know, I have expertise and a lot of things, but I don't. I know what I'm good at talking about, so I talk about those things. We're all that way, so never downplay your intelligence. You wouldn't be able to put all of this together if you weren't a super, super smart guy.
Well, I very much appreciate that, Ragan. I want to say that the links to all of Ragan's stuff will be below this video. There's podcasts, there's books, there's Twitch, there's social medias, but where do you want people to follow you, Ragan?
I have a website. It's kind of the landing page for all of my stuff, and it's Ragan Fox, RAGANFOX.blog. That's the full address, and that takes you to my website and has just about everything that you can imagine. I have, you know, my latest tweets and my latest YouTube videos and links to all my books, and I write blog entries about, you know, what's ever kind of be in my bonnet at that time. And so that's where I would recommend going. I'm looking at it right now.
Well, we will put the links to all of that in the description for this show. But as always, Nicole, I want to give you final thoughts.
Oh man, I have a lot of final thoughts, and I think I know I speak for all of chat when I say thank you for coming on and spending so much time with us, and not, you know, just talking about little things here and there or superficial things, or, you know, really getting into the topics and really bearing your soul and being an open book. And it's evident that you're a professor. You're somebody whose class I would love to sit in on. And just keep being your amazing self. Keep rocking and rolling. Keep doing what you do. Keep spreading your truth, because I think it's something that a lot of us don't often do. So to see it inspires us to do the same. I know I'm inspired. I know people in chat are inspired, and I adore you so much.
Oh, ditto. Yeah, thank you for having me. You were such both gracious host, and I loved being on the show.
Well, thank you, Ragan. Like I said, we hope that you will come back. I realized I threw it to
anytime.
Nicole and didn't ask you if there was any final thought that you wanted to leave, because there are so many people
Ragan
here
has
to hear.
final thought.
So do you have a final thought, Ragan, or anything that you want to say to all the people?
Yeah, well, no, I have a few. The first of which is, it's so lovely to interact with you, Nicole. You are, I mean, I'm very guarded when it comes to Big Brother alumni. I try to keep a very healthy distance from people who have done the show, just because I don't want to become, ensnared by all of that stuff. But I'm so glad that I've had an opportunity to connect with you. And Eric, I'm just so incredible. This is going to sound, I don't mean for it to sound condescending, but I'm just so proud of you. And I remember when I was working at Superpass and they wanted to give somebody a show and everybody had to turn in kind of like videos of what their show would be. And I remember I was like one of the judges, and I remember seeing your video, and it's just so exciting, all of this a decade later to see what you put together, even at the very beginning where it was like, oh my gosh, your intro is so beautiful and professional, and just, and the rapport, it's, Nicole was saying that we were able to go deep, and you can really only go as deep as host will enable you to go. And so it really is, I feel like this was a therapy session for me, and it's a testament to what y'all have done. So thank you very much for having me.
Well, that means a lot. It's not 1:30. We're gonna end the show. I never knew that you were a judge. Look, we will see you guys all tomorrow. I'm sure Ragan will be on Twitch tonight. Do you have your Twitch schedule up somewhere, Ragan, or you just go whenever?
I just kind of go whenever. I'm gonna start, because I'm trying to build that out more, because I love gaming so much. So I'm I just started Twitch points where you can redeem it for stuff. And so I'm building up to that point.
Perfect.
Love it.
We will see all of you guys on the next show. Bye for now, everybody. Bye, friends. Bye, guys.